Next on Investigative Report. Dating app dangers. Men who risk their lives for love. Many guys swipe right for love, but if you swipe wrong, you could be placing your financial or physical life in great peril. Each year, over 40 million Americans use dating apps to hook up, but a small percentage of those dalliances end in harassment, robbery, injury, and even death. In this investigative report, we'll tell you the story of an Atlanta woman who met a man on a dating app. This woman then stabbed the man in his own apartment while demanding money. The man was taken to a local area hospital and the woman captured by police the following morning. Before swiping right, find out what you can do to keep yourself and your finances safe. And now, dating app dangers. Men who risk their lives for love. Society teaches all elementary students the time-honored warning of beware stranger danger. This warning is a valid attempt to keep them safe from people they don't know. Now perhaps this warning is good advice for grown men who need to adhere to similar cautions when searching for love online. And by the time we finish this show, you know the difference. Tonight we will bring you 7 actual dating stories of men that have been stalked, stabbed, stolen from, and murdered after inviting women into their lives online. Now, keep in mind that none of these tragedies befell these men because they were casually fishing online for a one-night stand, but because they were members of an official online dating site with women who had supposedly been vetted by those organizations. And online, what you have to watch for was that people use older pictures of themselves, maybe 5, 10, 15 years older, and that they are really that particular person. Many of these men you will hear about tonight could have saved their finances, their health, and their lives if they had only done these few examples authorities suggest we do when meeting anyone offline that we met online in person. First, don't be afraid to ask for dates, first and last name, to do some digging to confirm this person actually exists. 2, let a friend know exactly where you're going to be, who you'll be with, and if it's a person whom you've met online. You might want to take a screenshot of a person's profile and send it to a friend and say, here's where I'll be and who I'll be with. It's good if somebody else knows where you're going. That way you come back. 3, once in public space, police say to have an exit plan should something go wrong. When you get to a coffee shop or restaurant, for example, the first thing you need to do is look for an exit sign that is in an establishment in case you have to excuse yourself and leave, they say. So in some cases, you might want an out. Now, on to the stories of men who have come to regret swiping right online. Our first story is of a father who was killed after dating a woman online. The night before police found Mr. Adam Hillary dead in his kitchen, the 27-year-old Central Florida father went bowling with the woman he met through online dating site plentyoffish.com. Now I'm pretty sure out there a lot of you heard of plentyoffish.com. Tonight we'll give you several examples of cases that happened on this particular dating app. The couple had a seemingly good night together, and they went back to his place. After she returned home to her apartment, she texted him later. I had a good time and would like to see you again, she said. Remember, she said, I had a good time, I'd like to see you again. The night of his death, they saw one other again, but this time she brought an ambush with her. That Friday night, she brought 3 men to rob Hillary of TVs, an Xbox, and his iPhone. And one of the men unnecessarily shot him in the head. This elaborate facade and ruse all done just to sell a few pawnable items. The murderous group was arrested after an extensive investigation, where 4 people in connection with the killing, including an 18-year-old Haley Bustos, who went on a date with him, Andre Warner, 26 years old, Gary Gray, 31 years old, and Joshua Ellington, 26, were all arrested on charges of conspiracy to commit robbery, robbery with a firearm, and first-degree murder. Authorities were told during the investigation that Mr. Hillary was begging for his life. He was not putting up any kind of fight or resistance, and was telling them that he had a 5-year-old daughter, a beautiful 5-year-old daughter who was today fatherless. She was already motherless. Social media photos show Hillary suited up in boxing gloves and robe. He posted multiple photos of his daughter on his Facebook page, calling her his princess. But I guess to the woman he dated, this really didn't matter. Story number 2, which is our second one. A man who was stabbed by a woman in a hotel in Henderson, Nevada, with international implications. This woman, without any logical reason, stabbed the man she had met online in retaliation for the 2020 death of Iranian leader killed in an American drone strike, if you can believe it. So she was getting back at America by stabbing him. Folks, you can't make this stuff up. Miss Nika Nukublin, 21 years of age at the time of the attack, faced charges of attempted murder, battery with a deadly weapon, and burglary. Mr. Kubin and the victim met online on the dating website plentyoffish.com. Comes up again, right? The man and woman then agreed to meet at Sunset Station Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada on March 5th with plans of renting a room together. Now, remember, they warn you about this. Make sure your friends know where you're going when you're coming back. While in that room, the pair began engaging in sexual activity. When Nukubin put a blindfold on the victim to supposedly heighten the moment, Nukubin then turned off the lights, and several minutes later, the victim felt a pain in the side of his neck. The pain Nukubin repeatedly stabbing the victim in the neck for revenge against U.S. troops for killing Qasem Soleimani in 2020, she said. And this incident occurred when U.S. forces killed Soleimani in a drone strike on January 3rd, 2020 at the Baghdad International Airport in Baghdad, Iraq. And this had nothing, literally nothing to do with her date. After the stabbing, the victim pushed Nukubin off of him and ran out of the room to call 911. Nukubin also ran out of the room behind him, telling a hotel employee that she had just stabbed a man. So I guess she saved police the entire investigation by admitting to what she had done. It'd been much better if she admitted this on her dating profile.
You're watching MNN, the Men's Channel.
When talking to police, Nukubin told investigators she wanted revenge, police said. She said she had listened to Dave Matthews' song called Gravedigger, which gave her the motivation to carry out her revenge. The presiding judge in the case set her bail at $60,000, which is very low for a person who had just attempted to murder someone else. Now, our third case that should warn you about the perils of online dating is for a woman who killed the man she met on FarmersOnly.com. Now, FarmersOnly.com was one of the last online dating sites to come about. FarmersOnly.com launched in 2005 on the premise that the city folks just don't get it. So it's more of a site for dating people who are more rural or the country-like setting. However, one couple who met on the site didn't have such a happy ending. Sherry Williams Jones, 57, turned herself in on that particular day after she killed the person at the Cumberland County Detention Center for alleged murder of 61-year-old Clarence Smith in the year 2015. So she met a guy under the auspices that they were going to have a good time dating each other, only to kill him. The two had met on Farmers Only. The two dated for several months before the breakup. After she called her ex-boyfriend, when they broken up, to pick up his belongings, Jones called 911 and said she had fired a gun at Smith. When police arrived, Smith was lying on the front yard, motionless. He was dead. Jones said she was the one who shot him, and that it was in self-defense. In a lot of these cases where women attack men, they say it's in self-defense. But a subsequent investigation found that not to be the case. But in this case, it looks like the sheriff's office took 3 years to bring charges, and before she had to even turn herself in. What do you have to do to get arrested? Now, our fourth case concerns a woman who is accused of robbing and killing the man she met on a dating site in Garfield Heights. Now this is in Ohio, which is near Cleveland. The woman, Shakira Graham, 24 years of age, who linked up with Meshack Cornwall, 27, on the matchmaking service plentyoffish.com, before the pair spent a night together at his home in Garfield Heights on December 15th of that particular year. 2 days later, Graham returned to her date's home where she allegedly robbed him of his guns, cell phones, a gold 2009 Honda Accord, and television before she fatally shot him to death. The victim's body was found by his horrified mother lying unconscious and bleeding at the bottom of his basement stairway. She was not even going to tell she did it. Whoever found him, found him. If not, she had a chance to get away. Police and firefighters in Garfield Heights determined Cornwall's cause of death to be multiple gunshot wounds. Graham, his online date, was arrested at her mother's home in Cleveland on Fairmont Boulevard. Ms. Graham, at the time of her arrest, was charged with aggravated murder in the shooting death of Meshack Cornwall and held on $3 million bond. So in one town, the judge said $60,000. In another state, it's $3 million bond. At least the legal system doesn't agree with itself. Shakira Graham was ultimately sentenced to life in prison with a chance of parole in 25 years. A jury found her guilty of aggravated murder, aggravated robbery, aggravated burglary, and several other felony charges in the death of Meshack Cornwall.
You're watching M&N, the Men's Channel.
Our fifth online dating tragedy came at the hands of a 21-year-old North Charleston woman who was charged with murder in the death of the man she met on Tinder.com, yet another dating site. This case occurred in North Charleston, South Carolina, where the victim was fatally shot after the 21-year-old woman he met through the dating app tried to rob him inside of her home. So you would constantly hear this coming up. These women meet these guys and they attempt to rob them before assaulting them or killing them. Now, Sherry Gadsden was charged with 1 count of murder and 1 count of attempted armed robbery in the death of Alan P. Johnson III. She is accused of helping her co-defendant Rob Johnson, who was armed with a handgun. So in other cases, they would bring somebody along for the crime, but ultimately both end up in prison. One ends up in the grave. North Charleston police officers arrived at an apartment on Susan Drive off Dorchester Road about 3:45 a.m. that morning in response to possible alcohol poisoning, according to a copy of the incident report. They encountered Gaston, who was grossly intoxicated, they said, near the driveway. She led officers inside the apartment where they found Johnson, 24 years of age, in a bedroom suffering a gunshot wound to the head. Now, the Charleston County Coroner's Office confirmed he died at the scene. So how does a date manifest itself to the grave? Officers placed the woman in the back of a patrol car and read her Miranda warning. Gaston then explained she and Johnson went downtown before returning to her North Charleston home. So this was her house. If you're going to kill somebody, why kill them in your own home? Now, Gaston then made up an elaborate story to defend her innocence that went as follows. Get this. She said she went to the bathroom, then went upstairs to check on Johnson and found him on the floor. Gaston told police officers no one else was in the apartment. So in that case, you're actually admitting that if no one else was in the apartment, and there was no breaking and entering, you did it. Gaston was then transported to a local hospital because of her intoxication level, then to jail after she was cleared for transport. Officers examined Gaston's cell phone after she told him she met Johnson through dating app Tinder. So when you do date somebody on these particular sites, there is a trail made. There used to be a paper trail made, now there's a digital trail made. They noticed that deleted messages between Gaston and an unnamed co-defendant leading up to the time of the homicide show she conspired with 2 others to come to her house and rob Johnson. So once again, it's coming up as robbery. So in these cases, you definitely want to tell your friends where you're going. You definitely want to tell somebody you know what time you're coming back and who you're going with. Minutes before witnesses told police they heard gunshots, Gaston sent a message to one of the co-defendants saying the apartment door is unlocked. Hence, there was no breaking and entering. Gaston was held in the Charleston County Jail without bail, awaiting her day in court for murder charges. So her trial is still coming out. Our sixth story involves Jacqueline 80s, a female stalker from Paradise Valley, Arizona. She is a woman who is accused of sending a man 65,000 texts after one date and says she was in love with him. 65,000 texts, that is amazing. In her own words, Jacqueline says, "I felt like I met my soulmate, and everything was just the way it was. And I thought we would just do what everybody else did and just get married and everything would be fine." But that was not what happened. In love, it has to be a two-way street, not a stalker one-way street. Police arrested 80s after she was found in a man's bathtub in Paradise Valley. So she entered his home without his knowledge. Officers also said they found a butcher knife in her car and charged her with threatening stalking and harassment. Additional statements from Mrs. 80s included her saying, "Loving him selflessly brought this information because everyone just wants to take it. But if you just give and you stop giving, even if you don't receive, you all of a sudden receive a lot." So those were her words. Court document says 80 sent the man about 500 messages a day. Can you imagine, ladies and gentlemen? 500 messages a day. You must weren't working anywhere. One message sent said, "I want to wear your body parts." And another said, "Bathe in your blood." 80s met the man a year ago online and never stopped texting him since. 80s, on the other hand, did not answer questions regarding whether the victim asked her to stop contacting him or not. When asked about the threatening tone of her messages, 80s said, "When you're finding love, not everything is perfect. This was a journey, and I want to apologize because no one ever would be more sorry than I was." Jacqueline was set to appear in court on May 15 of 2020, but the charges were dropped against her by the judge. So in each of these cases, down the road, if something happens, it was because the judge set the person free. Our seventh and final online dating horror story comes to us from Atlanta, Georgia, where a man was stabbed by a woman he met on a dating app in his northeast Atlanta apartment. Now, Atlanta police were dispatched around 5:30 a.m. in the morning. Now, this particular morning to 1925 Monroe Drive, which is the Gables Midtown Apartments. Officers said they met with a man who claimed he had been stabbed. Now, not only because he was bleeding, the man told officers that he had recently met a woman on a dating app. According to the report from police, she demanded he send her money before stabbing him. So yet another case of financial gain from injury or death. Police said he was taken to the local hospital for treatment. Atlanta Police Department found and arrested the woman. She was charged with aggravated assault. Now, to me, it would seem in most of these cases we have given you tonight, the motive is promised love or dating for robbery or goods or wealth. I ask you, be very careful who you date online, so we can see you back here and alive next week. For Investigative Report, this is Charles Rivers. Thank you for joining us.